Welcome to Modi Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Israel's massive democracy movement is ready for war. The Indian Army's boosted logistic capabilities in Kashmir. Gays in India slam top court for passing marriage rights bill to parliament. Israel's massive democracy movement is ready for war. Washington Post. During the 11 days of conflict between Israel and Hamas last month, Israeli protesters, who for 9 months had been demonstrating against the government's plans to limit judicial independence, pivoted their efforts to support the war effort. Members of military veterans group Brothers and Sisters in Arms, who had pledged to boycott their reserve duties, grabbed their uniforms and went to the front lines. Other groups organized gear drives to find weapons and supplies, while fundraising leaders booked hotel rooms for evacuated families. Cyber experts gathered digital traces of the 200 Israelis who had been taken hostage by Hamas, providing tips on possible locations to Israeli security services. Psychologists counseled traumatized victims, and women's groups used their 80 national affiliates and more than 150,000 members to create pop-up supply networks, gathering and delivering donations to the increasing number of evacuees. Protesters said their criticisms of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right coalition had been confirmed by the government's inability to respond to the crisis, leading to a further collapse in faith in the government. The groups are now coordinating a response to the crisis to assist in the rebuilding of the country. The Indian Army's boosted logistic capabilities in Kashmir. Diplomat. The Indian Army's logistics capabilities in the disputed region of Kashmir have greatly improved over the past 25 years due to infrastructure development. Previously, limited road communications hindered the Indian Army's supply lines in the mountainous region. However, recent construction and upgrades of roads and strategic tunnels have turned the tide in favor of the Indian Army. The near completion of the new Udhampur-Srinagar-Baramulla rail link, USBRL, will further enhance logistics capabilities. This infrastructure project aims to establish a vital connection between the Baramulla district and the rest of India, facilitating efficient transportation of individuals, commodities, and security personnel. In addition to railways, road and highway development has also seen a surge, particularly since Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power in 2014. The government has allocated a significant amount of funding for road and rail infrastructure development in the disputed territory of Kashmir. These developments enhance the Indian Army's ability to mobilize during wartime by reducing transit times for troops and equipment, allowing for prompt replenishment of war stocks, and enabling immediate casualty evacuation. The upgraded infrastructure also poses a challenge to the Pakistan Army, as it gives the Indian Army an advantage in deploying personnel and material during a crisis. Gays in India slam top court for passing marriage rights bill to parliament. Al Jazeera. India's Supreme Court has ruled against legalizing same-sex marriage and granting adoption rights to unmarried gay couples. The court recognized that the LGBTQ community faces discrimination from the state, but declined to engage in judicial lawmaking on same-sex marriage, saying such a decision should be addressed by Parliament. The ruling is a setback for India's LGBTQ community, which had hoped the court would grant them the right to marry their partners. Homosexuality was criminalized in India under Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, a law inherited from British colonial rule. The law was overturned in 2018, but Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government opposed same-sex marriage, arguing that it was not compatible with the Indian family unit concept of a husband, a wife, and children. LGBTQ activists have called for an anti-discrimination law to protect queer individuals and address family violence inflicted upon them. Hello, viewers. I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Let's dive into today's stories. First up, we have Israel's massive democracy movement joining forces with the war effort. During the recent conflict with Hamas, Israeli protesters shifted their focus to support the war, demonstrating their commitment to their country. From military veterans donning their uniforms and joining the front lines to cyber experts helping locate hostages, these groups rallied together to assist their nation. It's interesting to see how the government's inability to respond effectively to the crisis has further fueled their criticisms. Now, these groups are coordinating their efforts to aid in the country's rebuilding process. Moving on to the Indian Army's boosted logistic capabilities in Kashmir. Over the past 25 years, infrastructure development has greatly improved the Indian Army's supply lines in the region. The completion of the Udhampur-Srinagar-Baramulla rail link and the development of roads and highways have revolutionized their logistics capabilities. This not only enhances their ability to mobilize during wartime but also poses a challenge to the Pakistan Army. It's fascinating how infrastructure development can significantly impact a country's military operations. Lastly, the LGBTQ community in India is disappointed with the Supreme Court's ruling against legalizing same-sex marriage and granting adoption rights. While the court acknowledged discrimination faced by the LGBTQ community, it deferred the decision to Parliament, stating that it should be addressed through legislation. This setback highlights the ongoing struggle for equal rights and protections for the LGBTQ community in India. Activists are now calling for an anti-discrimination law to protect queer individuals and address family violence. In conclusion, today's news showcases the power of grassroots movements, the impact of infrastructure development on military capabilities, and the ongoing fight for LGBTQ rights. These stories highlight the complexities and challenges faced by different societies around the world. It's important to keep discussing and questioning these issues to promote understanding and progress. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of these stories? How do you think grassroots movements can shape a country's response during a crisis? And what are your views on LGBTQ rights and the role of the judiciary in social change? Share your ideas, and let's engage in a lively discussion together. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.